Hey everyone, it's Nick with the Whip Shop, and today I'm in the shop with Jon Malament of Eagle Whips. And today we're going to talk about double overlapping strands when you're dropping strands. This is something that has been brought to my attention time and time again over the past 2 or 3 years. And to be honest, I never really felt like I needed to address it because it really, for me personally, it wasn't really a problem. But I know that a lot of you do care about these things, and it is important to pay attention to them and to find a solution. So today we are going to be learning from Jon how to do this, and we're not sure where this method came from, but Jon's really good at it, and I'm inspired to try it myself. We're hoping that you guys find it useful too. So this is a beautiful 6-foot bullwhip that Jon put together over the past couple days, and if you take a close look at it, you'll notice that besides the seams being perfectly straight, he did a great job on the whip, but you can't find any spots where there are 2 strands side by side or double overlapped. So we're going to look and see how Jon does this. So Jon, how long have you been using this method to eliminate this double overlap that we're trying to get rid of here?
I want to say that I've been using it for about 1.5 years. But I do really just want to emphasize that I didn't create this method. I actually found it from someone's YouTube channel. I don't remember who it was, but the method that they had called it was the shaking the strands method. And basically what that entailed was taking apart all of the strands on a whip when you're weaving it and somehow reassembling them back together and just continuing on the Plat. And the thing that I saw an issue with there was that it didn't allow for the tension to stay in the whip. And I improved upon that method, and I'm dubbing it the inverse Plat method. You flip the whip over while you're weaving, and you sort of undo the strands just a little bit, just enough to get it to a place where you can start plaiting again. And you just continue the weave, and you eliminate all of the double strands. There is no way for you to get a double strand when you're doing the inverse Plat method. It really adds to the aesthetic of a whip. When you look at it like this, and when you look at it from the side, both sides, there are no double strands anywhere. Seeing one straight line going down, one continuous seam, is something that a lot of whip makers wish that they could have in their whips, but they see that double strand, and they think to themselves, oh man, I really wish that I could get this out of here.
In addition to that, Jon, you have a method for doing this tapered twist. If you hold this up right here, your method involves twisting and dropping so that you don't have to melt and press that strand into the rest of the whip. So that's something really unique that I've never seen before. I think that is a method that you definitely invented. So we're going to also look at that, and we hope you guys enjoy this video. Please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hope you learned something.
Now what I'm doing right now is I'm just plaiting my way down the whip and getting to the part where I'm going to need to drop a strand. And as soon as I get to that place where I drop a strand, I'll be showing you guys how to do the inverse plaiting method. So I'm getting ready to drop one of the strands now, and I'm just a couple strands away. This is the one I'm going to be dropping right here, this tiny short little one. And so I'm getting ready to drop that. Just need to do one more pass. And once I drop it, I'm going to be plaiting over it, and I'm going to drop the other strand and before I do the inverse plaiting method. Because the thing that you don't want to do when you're doing the inverse plaiting method is dropping the strands and then immediately inverting the Plat. Because what that's going to do is it can easily create a kink in the whip, an area where the tension is a little bit less tense than the areas around it. So we've got the strand ready right now. Just going to tighten everything up a little bit. Especially want to tighten up that strand we're going to be dropping. Okay, now that's ready. Just want to slide that underneath. Do it nice and slow. Hold all the other strands down so that that strand right there, that's the one. We don't want it to look like it's slanting. We want to try as hard as we can to keep it from doing that slant. Now we just start plaiting over it, just like it's a part of the core. We keep up this plaiting, keep going, and in a second we'll drop this other strand. And here's what I want to show you real quick. Right now we are in a under 4/3 pattern, and what the inverse plaiting method is going to do for us is it's going to change that to an under 3/4, which is exactly what we need, because when we drop that next strand, we're going to want 4 on the bottom so that when we drop it, it's going to be an even under 3/3. So let's just keep plaiting over this core. Keep going and maintaining tension the entire way. Under 4. There's the strand right there. Under 4/4. And this next pass around the core that we do is going to be the one where we drop that next strand. Alright, so we're just about ready to drop this last strand, and this is the one that we're going to be dropping right here. And you see it's 3 underneath it, and this one strand right here sticking out like a sore thumb. So, just like the last one, let's tighten everything up. Make sure it's ready to be dropped. And tighten up that one strand especially. There we go. Now, just like last time, move that side, holding everything tight. Try to make sure that that strand doesn't slant down. We're trying to make it look as natural as possible. All right. And now we're plaiting over 2 strands right now. Both of them are going to become part of the core. And we're just going to keep plaiting over them until we've went about 6 or 7 strands past them. So to do this, what you want to do is you want to have all your strands out like this. They're all nice and neat. And keep tension on that area the entire time, because what you don't want to do is lose tension and possibly risk having a kink in your whip, especially in the lower down portions of it. So what you want to do is you just flip it over, and right here, where it's going all crazy on the back, you want to pinch down there and just put it back into your vise. Perfect. And once you have it there, keep holding down there, and you're going to unweave this back part, and you're going to bring all the strands out to what it normally looks like, so that just like you normally do, you've got all your red on the right and all of your white on the left. So there you go. You see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just the way that we want it to be. And let me show you something really interesting. When you look at this whip right here, you can see that it is automatically in an under 3/4 pattern. And that's exactly what you want when you're weaving a whip. And what that does is it avoids giving your whip double strands and enables you to go into that under 3/4 pattern without losing any tension, without causing any double strands, and it maintains the straightness of your weave, which is also very important. Maintaining the straightness of a pattern is always something that's a little bit difficult to maintain when you have a double strand. But when you have it like this, in the inverse plaiting method, it keeps that straightness, and it keeps your whip looking nice and clean all the way down. And as you see, we are going to be needing to drop another strand somewhat soon. And once we drop that strand, since it's in that under 3/4 pattern, we can just drop it like we normally do. Add it to the core, and nobody will even know it was ever there. So I'm getting ready to drop one more strand, or actually two more, and just tightening it up real quick. And the strand I'm going to be dropping is this one right here, this red one, and it's a little bit long because when I was measuring the cord, I gave it a little bit of leeway just so that I didn't mess up this whip. I will be cutting off most of it, and it's probably only going to be this long. But anyway, so we want to get to tightening all of these strands that are around it, and tighten this one nice and tight, especially. Make sure it stays in place when we drop it. And I think I'm also going to tighten these ones on this side too. Oh, that one just came undone. Tighten that up a little bit more. And I can't stress this enough. It is so important to tighten your strands right before you drop one. Because if you don't, it might make it look like the strand is tilted and on its side. Alright, so we're getting ready to drop this strand, and we're in an under 3/4 pattern right now. And once we drop this one, we're going to be in an under 3/3. Or under 3/3, yeah. And let's just go ahead and do that. Paying very close attention to this strand right there, because that's the one that is getting dropped, and we don't want it to look tilted or slanted. We want it to look like it was never dropped. Perfect. And now plait over that a little bit. And the next strand that we're going to be dropping right after this one is going to be this strand right here. So we still got to plait just a tiny bit more before we can drop that one. And one more pass should be enough to do it. All right, so now we're in position to drop that one strand. Just like always, I'm going to tighten these strands up a little bit around it. Just make sure that it's all nice and tight, and so that when I drop it, it's not going to look like it's tilted or anything. And just like the red one, it's going to be under 3/3. So pull it underneath. Just keep going. And once you see that strand start to move a tiny bit, that's when you need to slow down and be careful. And now we just get to plaiting over both of these strands. And there we go. And now, because this is in a under 3/3 pattern, we don't really have to worry about doing the inverse plaiting method again. Because if we were to do the inverse plaiting method right now, the only thing that would happen is that it would still be an under 3/3. So, the only time we want to do the inverse plaiting method is when we have more strands on the top and less strands on the bottom. Because what the inverse plaiting method does is it allows us to move one of the strands from the top to the bottom and enables us to drop that strand. All right, so here we are. We're in an under 3/3 pattern on both sides, and we're getting ready to drop our next strand. So let's just go ahead and do that. And like before, these strands are super long that I'm dropping because I gave it a lot a lot of leeway. So this is right here. Oh gosh, let me clear that out for you. There we go. This top strand is the one we're going to be dropping first. So let's just plait on down to it. Because as you can see, as the plaiting goes on, the steepness of the angle where the strands hit each other is starting to get a little bit narrower. And what we're looking for whenever we are weaving a whip is for that steepness. And when that steepness starts to come on, we're getting ready to drop a strand. So, keep on going. And we need one more red on the bottom, because it's the strand we're going to drop, so we need one more red. And you just keep weaving that. And here we're coming up on the last one that we need to do. Now just bring that through and pull that tight. Perfect. Now we're just going to tighten all these up, get it ready to drop, especially that strand. And all right, keeping an eye on that so that it doesn't get too tilted. Underneath we go. Perfect. And we're just going to weave over it. And since we have so much extra freedom on these strands, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to weave over this a little bit more. The next strand that we're going to be dropping is right here. So I'm just going to give it 2 more white strands underneath it. One more red. Pull that tight. And one more white. Great. So now we have those 3 strands on the bottom. This top strand being the one that we're going to drop. So we're just going to tighten this up just like we did on the right. Just like we've always done. Especially tightening that strand we're dropping. And we're going to pull it right next to the red. Keeping an eye on that strand. Good. And now, I'm just going to weave over this a tiny bit. Okay, so what we have here is we dropped it from a under 3 over 3 pattern to what is now an under 3 over 2. And this is going to require us to do the inverse plaiting method again, because as you can see here with the white, it's going under these 3 strands and under 2. And we can't drop another strand if there's a pattern like this. So we gotta inverse that, flip the whip, and do it again. Alright guys, so we're at the next point where we're going to need to do the inverse plaiting method again. And I'm just going to go over it real quick with you again. So you want to keep tension on this area until you flip it over, at which point you're going to keep tension on this area. Put it back in your vise, and then you're going to want to undo all of these strands and bring them back to what they looked like before. Just gonna give that a little bit of tightness just to clean up any areas where I accidentally lost tension. And as you see, it's starting to look exactly the same as when it did before I flipped it. But the key defining thing is that instead of it being under 3 over 2, it is now under 2 over 3. And what that does is it enables us to drop strands again. That's the most important thing. And like before, if you were doing that double stranding method, you'd be having a big ugly chunk of your whip with 2 strands sitting right next to each other, and that just stands out way too much from what you hopefully want to see. It's really all an aesthetic choice when it comes to either doing the inverse plaiting method or the double stranding method. I would say the double stranding method is a little bit better in one aspect, in that when you do the inverse plaiting method, what ends up happening is you have a few tiny gaps between the chords right where the flip took place. But I prefer to use the inverse plaiting method just because of the fact that it doesn't interrupt this nice line going all the way down it. And I'm just still weaving under 2 over 3. And I'll be dropping another strand soon. Alright everybody, so we're getting ready to drop this next strand. As you see here, we're in an under 2 over 3 pattern. It's perfect for what we need. We got the strand that we're going to be dropping right here, and the other strand that we're going to be dropping right... Where is it? The other strand is right here, so we're going to be dropping that one first. Right now, we just need to do one more red pass, and we'll be right there. Perfect. Alright, and as always, we're just going to tighten up these chords, make sure it's not going to slant down, and drop the strand. Pull it under, nice and slowly watching that strand so it doesn't slant down too much. Perfect. And we're going to keep plaiting over that. Next strand we just pulled over is the one we're going to be dropping. And on this side we are in an under 2 over 2 pattern with the strand we dropped as the core. Great. So 2 more passes with the white is all we're going to need. And then we get to drop that strand too. That's 1. Pull this one over. And pull 1 more white over. And that is 2. So next thing we're going to do, we need to tighten all the strands, like always. Tighten that, and especially tighten that strand we're dropping. Get all of these ready for the drop, and pull it under right next to that red strand. That's super smooth, perfect. And now we're just going to keep plaiting over this, and we don't have to worry about another inverse plat until we get to the strand after this one that we'll be dropping. So right now we're in an under 2 over 2, which means that we can still drop a strand from this plat. We don't have to inverse it again. We're only going to have to inverse it once it's a under 2 over 1. And once it is, we're going to do that inverse plat one last time, and it'll be an under 1 over 1. Alright, so we're here about ready to drop this strand right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and tighten this up, and then we're going to have under 2 over 1 on the right, and under 2 over 2 on the left. So got that strand dropped, I'm just going to plait over it a little bit. And there we go. Keep it looking as nice and clean as possible. That's the ultimate goal. And since we're getting to the end of the whip almost, instead of dropping the strand right now with this next one, I'm actually going to plait past it just once so that we have a little bit extra tension retention in the whip. And just trying to keep it as nice and tight as I can when I'm on this part, because the tension on the lower parts of the whip is arguably the most important part aside from the transition. And if you have bad tension on the lower end, then you risk getting kinks in it that are very visible and not wanted. So we're just going to keep plaiting until we get to that second strand. One more pass of the red and one more pass of the white. Should be all we need. And now we're ready to drop it. And as you can see here, so pull that strand under and just keep plaiting over it. Keeping that tightness as we go down. And all right, as you can see here, what we're currently in is an under 2 over 1. Now, all we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut these strands down a little bit so they taper, and since it's an under 2 over 1, we're going to have to do that inverse plaiting method one more time. And then once we do that, we won't have to do it again, and we're going to be ready to go into the under 1 over 1 pattern. And so let me just keep plaiting a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and taper off these core strands right here. Perfect. And as we keep going, those strands are going to become part of the core and we're not going to see them anymore. So we're just getting ready to do the final inverse plait. And before we do that, just want to tighten up all these strands. Want to make sure that they all got the tension they need on there and that we won't lose any when we do this last final flip, because this is definitely the most treacherous point to make a mistake at. If you do that, it's going to be really, really visible, and it's going to make your whip stand out in a bad way. So we're going to keep tension on that point right there as we pull these strands out one by one and even them out, so there's 3 on each side. And there we go, under 1 over 2, just the way that we need it to be. I'm going to tighten up those strands on the back, make them nice and close to the core of it, and just keep on plaiting. And then when it's finally time to drop another strand, we're going to be doing that as tight as we possibly can, because like I said before, as we get to the lower parts of the whip, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain that tension, and if you don't do it just right, then you might have a really big nasty kink in the whip, and that's something that nobody wants. Alright, so we're ready to drop the last 2 strands. I've already got the strand that I'm going to drop right here in the middle, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. Already tightened them. Now I'm just keeping tension on all of these strands to try to make it look as flush as possible. I'm going to bring that around and bring it through. Now on the right, we are in an under 1 over 1, and I'm just going to keep plaiting down a little bit before I drop this last final strand. And for this whip, instead of tying it off with a simple fall hitch, because I have such long strands, that was totally by accident, I want to add, by the way. I didn't intend for the strands to be that long at the end, but since they are that long, I'm not gonna waste them. Instead, I'm actually going to try creating a twisted fall, and I'm going to show my method for doing that, and at the same time I'm going to be showing how that's done again. Been a while since it was done on this channel, and so doing it again, having a little bit more video reference on how it's done can be a really good thing. Just going to keep pulling that tight, and you see those gaps want to come out in the plaiting, but as long as you keep scrunching it back up towards the top of it to try to get it as close and as tight as possible, you'll be fine. As well as the fact that this will mostly all be rolled out when we're done. So the strand that I want to drop, the next one, is right here in the center. And I think that now would be a good time to drop it. But first I want to tighten it up, get it nice and tight. There we go. So move that aside, and perfect. Now we're going to be plaiting over the core, which is a little bit of sinker cord and those two strands that we just dropped. So we're just going to taper that off nice and close to the other strands. That one down there. I'm just going to keep plaiting over them. And pretty soon we're just going to be plaiting over the sinker cord core, which I'm also going to cut down a little bit, probably right here, just so that we can be plaiting over nothing. And then once we're plaiting over nothing, that transition into the twisted fall is going to be a lot easier. Alright, so we're just about ready to make this twisted fall. I've got everything that I'm going to need for it. I have a lacing needle, my scissors, and, of course, my trusty hands. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to twist this onto its side. And what I found works best is you take the two colored strands right here and here, and what you want to do is you want to scrunch them up right next to each other, and you just start twisting. Just like that. And as you start that twisting, flip them over, keep twisting, and keep flipping. And you'll see that it's starting to make that classic twisted fall pattern. And the twisting is really important. You want to make sure that you're twisting it as much as you can, because you want those strands to be nice and scrunched up, nice and close to each other. And you just keep twisting. I'm going to go down to about 4 inches or 6 inches, and then I'm going to drop my first strand in the twisted fall. And the way I do this is a little bit different than what you're used to, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so we're getting ready to drop our first strand really quickly. And to do that, what we want to do is just put the clamp on here. Don't know why I took it off in the first place, but what we want to do is try to get it as short as possible. I'm going to be doing 2 of the same color. So try to get it to the length of your lacing needle. If you have a shorter one, then that could work for you. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting this just like that, and then grabbing my Or grabbing Nick's torch real quick and fusing the end a little bit. Great. Now once it's all fused up and ready to go, I'm just going to put it inside of that lacing needle. And thread it all in there nice and tight. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be threading it into the strand of the same color. Just try to get it as high up as you can. This lacing needle is just particularly hard because it has a diameter that's just barely underneath, or less than the diameter of the paracord itself. It makes it easier that this is 650 paracord, though, I can tell you that much. 650 has a larger diameter naturally, so makes things like this better. So we're just going to lace it through as much as we can. And then, once we're at the very end, you'll see that it is going to get real tight. Just like that. It just slips kind of right into the paracord. Now, the way it is right now, I'm going to just take the lacing needle out of the paracord and I'm going to trailblaze my own path out of here. And it's not in there anymore. And what we just did is we sort of threaded the paracord in on itself, and this is where it ends, right here. And so, with that done, we're just going to keep twisting. So it is now one strand of paracord with another strand of paracord on the right and two strands of paracord on the left. And as I keep going, I'm going to keep trying to taper it down, and the next one that I drop is going to be a white strand into another white piece of paracord. And as you see, because I dropped it into the strand of the same color, it looks almost like nothing has changed. It looks almost like I've just kept on plaiting with the same 4 strands. But as we keep going, this strand inside this red paracord is going to drop off. And you can see that's where the red gets very thin. I'm going to move this up a little bit further in the vise. And as we keep going, it's going to be time to drop another strand into the white paracord.
Looks like you can see right there.
Yeah.
Right where that stops. That's nice that you don't have to melt it.
Yeah. Only melting you do in this.
Makes it look prettier.
Oh yeah. Makes it look way prettier. And I actually think that it makes the tension of this a lot more equally distributed than it does when you just drop off the strand like that. All right, so we're in the final stretch. So I've been doing this for a little bit, and something you'll notice is that we are now down to 2 strands, and we don't have to worry about there being another strand inside of this strand anymore. And if you look at it, you can see that it's very nice, very fine, and close together. It looks like a miniaturized version of what we did up here. And I'm at the 18-inch mark right now where I am as we speak. So what we're going to do is, I want red to be the color of the fall. So I'm just going to take the lacing needle, find out how long this is. Good, right there. And we're just going to cut that right there. Going to go ahead and fuse that really quick. Perfect. Put that in there. Twist it nice and good. I'm sorry if I'm obstructing the view. I'm trying to hold all of these strands in place while I get this ready. So once it's rolled in nice and good, you can thread it in on itself, right up nice and high. And be careful not to let the strand fall out of the lacing needle just yet. Still need to bring it down. So as it goes down, you'll notice that the spiral might go away a little bit. But if you're careful and if you do it tight enough, you'll be able to make it look almost invisible. Good. Now that it's out, I can take it out of the paracord. There we go. So, undo all of this scrunchy bunchy mess, and what you'll have left is a nice, about 6 inches, and fuse these two together. And with that, we've just finished the twisted fall of the whip. It's very nice when it comes to the aesthetic because, especially when you roll it out, this will stay in a really nice twisted pattern. And I'll be showing you what it looks like once it's been rolled out and everything is the way it should be.
Well guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Jon, thanks for being on the show, man. If you guys like Jon's work, you can check it out on Instagram, Eagle Whips, or you can order a whip from him on his Etsy page. Link in the description for that. Thanks for showing us the tips, Jon. Appreciate it, and we will see you guys in the next one.